Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh, and good day to Dr. Anis, Surati Ahmad, and our fellow students. I am Wan Muhammad Nagwi bin Abdul Rahman, and my fellow group member Miss Usharani Sewaraja Singham and Miss Zaharatu Ain binti Abdul Halim. We are going to present about the annual report of Public Listed Company CCK Consolidated Holding Berhad for a year 2020. Briefly, CCK was established in 1970 in Sibu, Sarawak, and was listed in Bursa Malaysia in 1997, and the nature of business is poultry and retailing. Currently, their business operation in east of Malaysia, state of Sarawak and Sabah, and overseas operation in Indonesia at state Pontianak and Jakarta. CCK vision is the food people of choice, and the mission is provision of quality food, ensuring customer satisfaction, financial sustainability, and responsibility social and environmental interaction, and achieved through integrated solution involving innovative, integrated team and committed people. And the core value is to continuously quality, financial sustainability, customer satisfaction, and social and environmental responsibility. CCK market capitalization is 379 million with dividend yield of 3.3%, and the price to earning ratio is 11.96%. The financial performance of CCK since 2016 up to 2020 has shown that the revenue from 550 million to 660 million in 2020, and the profit also increased from 25 million up to almost 48 million in December 2020. The financial performance in 2020, revenue is 650 million with profit after tax is 37.5 million with the basic earning per share of 5.98 cents per share, and the total asset is 426 million with a liability of 125 million, and the return of equity is 12%. CCK revenue has increased to 0.7%, and also the profit has increased to 12% during pandemic COVID-19 if compared to the financial year 2019. The reason is the nature of business is classified as essential services by the government, and the business remain operation during the movement control order. In terms of business operations, CCK has over the years always increased the number of retail store to 65 in 2020, and also the new beginning of CCK supermarket with the establishment of 2 supermarkets.
In this topic, we are going to having a discussion on management discussion and analysis MDA. Poultry market trend is depends on the demand and supply. Fresh poultry prices might be affected as chicken breeding is planned according to the schedule and farmers. The supply chain as a whole have not been interrupted by the MCO. Meanwhile, biosecurity has been beefed up to be more safest. It is more in demand compared to the meat or chicken since it's more affordable. The price of grade C chicken egg has been remained largely unchanged since November 2019 at 34 cents each. However, the surge in sales volume has been remarkable even in need to lose 10 cents for the grade B egg. So from here, we able to conclude that even there is ups and down in poultry business, the market trend and demand keep increasing. SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis consists of strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. Now let's check what is the strength for the CCK Consolidated Berhad. They have a staff strength, strong brand recognition, first mover advantage, and also wide geographical presence. The weakness are low investment into CCK Consolidated Holdings, customer oriented service, extra cost of building new supply chain and logistic network, high cost of replacing existing expert, gross margin and operating margin, and bird disease and biosecurity. The third one is opportunity. The opportunities are rapid expansion of economy, trend of customer migrating to higher end product, first mover advantage and also wide geographic presence and local collaboration. The last one is threat. The first threat is foreign currency fluctuation risk, changing demographic and competitive pressure. Insight on key line item of financial statement. From here, we able to see that there is an increment of 0.73% in the total revenue when we compare with the 2019, and there is the expansion of the retail network, which is and there is an increment which is 67 in 2020. If we compare with the 2019, it's only 61 retail network, and they also a huge decline in the brown segment, declined by 16.28% and 69.39% respectively. This is because the decrease in the number of the container exported overseas resulting from the weak global pricing of the brown and weak demand due to the demand. There was also a decline in the total bank borrowing by 14.72 from 2019. Share of the result in associated improved by 23% over 2019 as the associated company, which is a Golden Coin Sarawak Sumber, had recorded an improvement in performance in 2020. Now we are going to discuss about the risk factor or concerns affecting the company performance. First, as we know, is outbreak of the COVID-19. The second one in foreign currency fluctuation risk, since our CCK Consolidated Holding Brand have a branch at Indonesia as well. Liquidity risk, biosecurity and disease risk, since CCK is involved with the poultry, mainly is poultry business, which involving chicken, meat, and everything. And the last one is competition risk, that can assist various stakeholder. Stakeholder can be divided into shareholders, customers, suppliers, and industry partners, employees, and government authorities and regulators. Shareholders receive information on board meeting because it's allowed them to inspect articles of incorporation, and they also have rights to receive information from the financial statement in order to predict present and future performance and understand the dividend payout ratio and forecast future dividends. The second one is customer and suppliers and industry partners. Customer have a right in order to get information with the company brand from the time the customer interacting with the brand 2 days and months after the purchase the product. Supplier need online analytical processing system, and the employees must know the information on what benefit they are receiving and whether they are working in the safest environment or not. For example, like short-term benefit, defined contribution plans, and defined benefit plans. The last one is the government authorities and regulators. They must make sure that the company or the organization giving priority to the safety of the employees, providing a good environment, and the product is to be used. The product is safest to be used. And the last one is a standard SOP, and they must make sure that the company is compliant with the current standard SOP since it's a COVID pandemic.
Next, I will explain on the financial statement and notes to account. Accounting policy that followed by a company is according to the Malaysian Financial Reporting Standard (MFRS), which is the investment in associate is an entity in which group and the company have long-term equity interest and where it exercise significant influence over the financial and operating policy. The property, plant and equipment in accordance with MFRS 116, all items of property, plant and equipment are initially measured at cost. For the investment properties, this is a property which are owned or right to use asset held to earn rental income or for capital appreciation or for both. The lease is a contract or part of a contract that conveys the right to use an asset, the underlying asset, for a period of time in exchange for consideration. Next is the inventory. Inventory are stated at the lower cost and net realizable value. For the cash and cash equivalent is according to the MFRS 107, the cash flow states that cash comprise cash on hand and demand deposit. Cash and cash equivalent comprise cash in hand, bank balance, demand deposit and short term. Next is the impairment. Impairment has two, which is the impairment of financial assets and the non-financial asset, which is the recognise a loss allowance for expected credit loss on investment in debt instrument. Meanwhile, the non-financial asset is carrying value of asset other than those to which MFRS 136 accordance to impairment of asset does not apply. Next is the employee benefit. Employee benefit has three, which is the short-term benefits, defined contribution plans, and defined benefit plans. Next is the income tax. Income tax is the current tax assets and liability are expected amount of income tax recoverable or payable to the taxation authorities. After that, they also have the contingent liability, which is a possible obligation that arises from past event and whose existence will only be confirmed by the occurrence of one or more uncertain future. After that, the borrowing costs. Borrowing costs, they are directly attributable to the acquisition, construction or production of a qualifying assets are capitalized as part of the cost of those assets. The fair value measurements is the price that would be received to sell an asset or paid to transfer a liability in an orderly transaction between market participants at the measurement date, regardless of whether that price is directly observable or estimated using a valuation technique. Next is the sales of goods. It is a revenue from sales of goods is recognized when the group has transferred control of the goods to the customer, being when the goods have been delivered to the customer and upon its acceptance. Next, I will explain on the recognition and measurement elements of financial statement. For the investment in associate, the company shares of losses exceed its interest in an associate. The carrying amount of the interest is reduced to zero and the recognition of further losses is discontinued except to the extent that the company has an obligation. For the property, plant and equipment, all property, plant and equipment are stated at cost less accumulated depreciation and any impairment losses. It is also recognized as a separate asset as appropriate. Investment properties which are owned are initially measured at cost. For the lease, the company recognizes a right of use asset and a lease liability at the lease commencement date. The inventory are measured at the lower cost and net realizable value. For the cash and cash equivalents is other short-term receivable and trade receivable remains unchanged. It is measured at amortized cost. For the impairment of financial assets, the company recognizes lifetime expected credit losses when there has been a significant increase in credit risk since initial recognition. For the impairment of non-financial assets, it measured by comparing the carrying value of the assets with their recoverable amount. Biological assets are measured on initial recognition and the end of each reporting period at their fair value less cost to sell with change in fair value less cost to sell recognized in the profit or loss for the period. The provision are recognized when the company has a present obligation either legal or constructive as a result of past events. After that is the employee benefit. It is the present value of the defined benefit obligation is calculated using The project unit credit method by independent actuaries annually determined by discounting the estimate future benefit the employees have earned in the current and prior periods. Income tax, there is two, which is the current tax and also the deferred tax. Current tax are measured using tax rate and tax law that have been enacted or substantively enacted at the end of the reporting period and recognized in profit or loss. For deferred tax is recognized using the liability method for all temporary differences other than those that arise from goodwill or from the initial recognition of an asset or liability. Tax is the contingent liability which is not recognized but is disclosed in the notes to the financial statement unless the probability of outflow of economic benefit is remote. For the earning per ordinary shares is calculated by dividing the consolidated profit or loss attributable to ordinary shareholders of the company by the weighted average number of ordinary shares outstanding during the reporting period. The borrowing cost is recognized in profit or loss as expenses in the period in which they are incurred. Next is the fair value measurements. It is the measurement assumed that the transaction takes place either in the principal market or in the absence of principal market in the most advantageous market. After that is the sales of good. It is recognized when the goods are delivered as this is the point in time that the consideration is unconditional because only the passage of time is required before the payment is due. After that, the sales of good, which is the cash sales, is recognized when the company has transferred control of the goods to the customer. Next is services. It is recognized upon the rendering of service and when the outcome of the transaction can be estimated reliably. Next is the other income. There is four, which is interest income, dividend income, rental income, and also the government grant. Interest income is recognized on an accrual basis using the effective interest method, while the dividend income is from investment and recognized when the right to receive dividend payment is established. Rental income is accounted for on a straight line method over the lease term, while for the government grant it recognized at their fair value when there is reasonable assurance that they will be received and all conditions attached will be met.
Critical thought. Critical thinking helps you to examine and improve thought process, ask the right question, challenge assumption, and consider varying viewpoint. For CCK Consolidated Holding Berhad, we have been choose asset as our critical thought. So we have and plant property and equipment, which they have been the initial recognition method which have been using is straight line method, and freehold land is not depreciated at this part. The second asset is investment. Investment they also using a straight line method, cause less accumulated depreciation and may impairment losses. Investment property are stated at the cost like accumulated depreciation and impairment losses if there is any. Depreciation is charged the profit or loss on straight line method over the estimated useful life of the investment property. So the estimated useful life is within 59 years to 99 years. The third one is the goodwill. Goodwill is measured at the cost less accumulated impairment losses. Under the acquisition method, any excess of the sum of the fair value of the consideration is transferred in the business combination. And the last one is biological asset. Biological assets are measured on the initial recognition and at end of each reporting period at their fair value less cost to sell with change in the fair value then less with the cost to sell recognized in the profit or loss for the period in which it arises.
So that's all from our group. Thank you.